get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
Well, howdy do, Kneecaps Nation. You are back at it again for another edition of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progar, that's me. Happy to be joined, as always, by my longtime partner in crime, Phil Byrne. And Phil, it's one of those situations where it's 90-plus degree heat, 100-plus degree heat index. We got that smoke again from the Canadian wildfires. There's pop-up thunderstorms out there. There's no sports of any kind going on right now because Major League Baseball's on their all-star break and the World Cup is all but finished up at this point. So what better time than that to get back into talking about some football?
Yeah, I know. It is this and kind of right around February, the 2 slowest times of the sports calendar year. And yeah, we've got weather kind of keeping us on the edge of our seats here tonight, but kind of knocking on wood as I say this.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to get this one done without a hitch here.
Absolutely, and a couple of peons like us don't have the whole house generator rig set up just yet. So if the power kind of glitches a little bit, then we'll roll with it. But in the meantime, you got Phil and myself. And last time we talked, we spent a little bit of time talking about the whole Terrion Arnold fiasco, and it kind of came to a head the last time we talked with the fact that the legal troubles kind of exploded, and then the Lions got out ahead of it by just straight releasing him. So the question became, once he had that hearing, because he had that hearing the day after we cut our last episode, and it turned out they basically let him post bond, which originally wasn't on the table. So he was able to post bond, and they decided that he did not need to wear any type of tether. So he was essentially able to go about life as usual until the next step in the legal process comes to fruition here. So in a sense, Terrion Arnold did clear waivers, I believe. So I believe he is a free agent now, and he is able to sign with any team that he wants. Allegedly, he has had some workouts with at least 2 or 3 different teams. The question becomes, Phil, is there any team out there that is willing to roll the dice and wants in on the Terrion Arnold business at this point?
I think he's going to play again in the NFL. I think it just kind of got to a point where the Lions did get ahead of it, but as we were kind of saying, like something didn't quite add up, and I think there has to be some sort of admission of guilt, not saying for the legal proceeding taking place here, but admission of did he lie to the Lions? Because everything, like we were talking about that last episode, kind of led us to believe that he didn't have any part in this. This was kind of just like his name getting thrown amongst a bunch of bad apples. We'll see again how the case kind of unfolds. It will be kind of a long, drawn out process. Getting this kind of activity going. But I think in the meantime, I think another team's going to sign him. I really do. I think it's just a matter of, are they going to be able to trust him to some extent? Because I think that's kind of where the Lions were kind of at their wits' ends with it. For what it's worth, and I'm not quite sure if we mentioned this because it's been a little bit of time since our last show. But it sounds like the Sabins, both Nick and Miss Terry, if you will, went to bat for him.
Yeah.
For his defense. So, kind of getting that first family of football backing me up, I'm sure helps a little bit. And then just kind of like we were saying too, like he doesn't have really anything prior to this that is known. So again, I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm not saying he's not guilty. it was clear though that the Lions' frustration with all of this, and then you kind of couple it with like, let's be real, he just wasn't that good
He
here
wasn't
for
that
where
good.
we drafted. I think the Lions just decided, hey, a guy like Rock Yassin probably deserves to start more over him at this point. So I think they just cut their losses.
And obviously, the charges that were levied against him were really nothing to snooze about. I mean, he was up on so many charges that he was looking at life in prison. And the
Yeah.
farther away we get from those initial charges and the fact that they're essentially letting him walk as a free man right now until the next phase in the process comes about, kind of leads us to believe that maybe those doomsday scenarios we heard of was maybe more just clickbait or just
Yeah.
jock radio hot takes or something like that. I don't know. But bottom line, it seemed like, kind of to your point, Phil, the Lions were looking for avenues to get out from under this. And they were able to use that as a crutch. The fact that, hey, we don't know if this guy's even going to be a free man anytime soon. So why should we continue to rely on him to be part of our organization? I think what it came down to at the end of the day was they just couldn't trust him to do what he needed to do to live up to his billing as a first round corner in this league. And that's to say nothing about his lack of health over the last couple of seasons. You couldn't even
That's true.
depend on him to be on
Yeah.
the field more often than not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, I don't like where our secondary is at. I also think too we're kind of in this weird holding period where, yeah, there are still some free agents that are left in that cornerback market prior to training camp, but I kind of feel like they're probably going to roll into training camp with what they've got until cuts start to happen. And maybe that's when they will go ahead and add, some sort of veteran presence in that
And then, of
secondary.
course, there's the old timer that just doesn't want to participate in training camp. So you're
That's true.
probably looking at probably second week of preseason, third week of preseason as the avenue to maybe scrounge that pile one more time of old time washed up corners and say, hey, you want to give it one more go. And I haven't taken a look at who's swimming in that pool right now, but I don't think that if you line all these guys up and say, hey, here we go, we're going up against a number of high powered passing offenses coming up this year. And I don't think this is a recipe for success, especially coming off a year where you finished last in your division, did make the playoffs. This is kind of a, hey, let's go ahead and flip that script 1 year later, not instilling a whole bunch of confidence, just as it sits, that they can do it at least on that particular portion of the ball.
It kind of almost feels like, and I think we've gotten to the point where we know Matthew Stafford is better than Jared Goff. I'll just put that out there
Yeah.
on this show.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
But it almost kind of feels like that's the kind of season that we're leading into, where the Lions offense has the capability of scoring a gazillion points in any given game. But for them to stay above 500 and above treading water, they're going to simply have to outpace what their defense is giving up. And that's not to take away anything from our Hutches and McNeils and, Jack Campbell's of the world, but that secondary as we start this season, I'm looking at Tyler Shuck in week one and going, you know, this guy's a pretty capable passer, even though he's still young in the NFL. What's stopping him from putting up 400 yards?
That's exactly it, Phil. And how many times have we seen that over the years, too?
Yeah,
You got a guy who the average NFL fan doesn't know who it is. Nobody,
yeah,
unless you were big into college football or really followed what the Saints did last year, the average armchair NFL fan isn't going to know who Tyler Shuck is.
yeah.
And you're going to get, like you do every year, 1 o'clock game, Chris Myers on the call, and you go on and on about how great Tyler Shuck is. This kid might be looking at a Hall of Fame. No, he just went up against the Lions secondary. But we've seen
Yeah.
that happen so many times. Some no-name quarterback comes in and drops a 400 spot on the Lions defense. Sometimes they win that game, sometimes they don't, but it's still right out the gates says, okay, This is what our secondary looks like. We just gave up 400 plus to Tyler Shuck of all people. So just wait until we start getting into the meat and potatoes of our schedule here and going up against quote unquote real quarterbacks. It could get not pretty in a hurry.
Yeah. So again, we don't really talk about fantasy football or anything like that in here, but I don't know. You might want to look at Jared Goff if you're thinking of just some guy that's just going to constantly throw the ball a lot
That's
this
the
season.
and that is the winning combination, Phil. You mentioned it. If the defense doesn't have what it takes to give up anything less than a gazillion points, it's on the offense to go out there and score a zillion and one every single game. And
Mm.
a lot of times that's doable, but we've seen what happens when the offensive line isn't up to snuff, when injuries play a role. It's a lot easier said than done. Now, I have a lot more confidence in the offensive line heading into this year, but it's still not going to be that polished product that I think everybody wants to get it back to from what it was in 23, what it was in 24, because you are getting a lot of new faces on this offensive line, even though the product looks to be better in totality than what it was last year. It's still going to take a little bit of time to get all these guys on the same page. And I think fans who are expecting a quick flip of a switch back to what it was 2 and 3 years ago are going to need to show a little bit of patience here. So that just goes to show, hey, let's either do something about this secondary or let's get some dogs on that pass rush. And I don't think, as it sits right now, I don't think anybody is bursting with confidence at either the pass rush or the secondary. So, no, all the pressure is on that offense. But the good news is that we've got all training camp to figure out what's going to happen as far as that goes. But again, just explains why you're not getting more people outwardly jacked about this upcoming season.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think the schedule, the way it's playing, I think people are a little bit more favorable with the Lions than they were heading into last year. But yeah, we got a lot of shows still to do before we kick things off against the Saints in week one. Plenty of time to see if there are any kind of last second moves added to this roster. But um, yeah, interesting. I mean, again, we're just tying it back to Terrion Arnold, and unfortunately, that is another high drafted cornerback that we just seem to be snake bitten by.
So you seem to think that he is going to play again for an NFL team, but you were not specific in indicating in 2026 or in the future. Do you think he plays for an NFL team in 2026, or do you think people are going to be a little hesitant to kind of let this whole fiasco play out a little bit more before they stick their neck out for Terrion Arnold at this point?
I think some team's going to sign him to a league minimum deal this year. I don't know if he actually plays. I mean, that's literally to be determined. But yeah, I mean, he's essentially a free agent. We know nothing's guaranteed. He's made, his money with the Lions to this point. I'm sure he wants to play. I'm sure he wants to feel like he doesn't have, this whole proceeding down his throat and that he's in the clear. And I don't really think that's completely
And
any,
usually these first round corners usually wind up getting that second contract, that, or
Mhm.
I should say that first big contract. And as it stands right now, he's not up for one of those because
Yeah.
he didn't play well enough. So he's definitely playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder if it winds up getting to the point where he is on the field playing for a team in 2026. He's got something to prove. And if he is as innocent as he says he is, he's going to want to do what he can to show that he's as much of a model citizen and great of an NFL corner as possible. And who knows, maybe it works out for the kid. But there's a lot of, I feel like there's still a lot more questions than answers before we can really start to get behind that at this point.
Nothing to speak to his character, but just to remind you, Jeff Okuda was still in the league last year. So that's why I think, like, was Terry and Arnold great? No, but I'd probably say he was still better than Jeff Okuda here, unfortunately,
You
sadly.
win. You win,
You know,
Phil.
Yikes. We're
Yeah,
going down that rabbit hole here,
no
but
kidding. No kidding.
yeah, no, I think he's going to sign with the team. I really
Okay.
do.
Okay. That's the Phil Byrne update of the day. Terrion Arnold will be playing in the NFL in 2026. You heard it here first. Okay, Phil, we're going to step away from the Lions in specific here because I feel like we talked about at the top of the show, we're in a dead time. There's really nothing going on right this minute. The Major League Baseball All-Star Game took place earlier this week. The official second half of the MLB season doesn't start up until the weekend. World Cup is just about over and done with, and we're still safely away from football to where it feels like we are kind of in a downtime with sports. So I feel like now is as good a time to do a little bit of a deep dive on something off the field a little bit as there probably could be. So let's take a jump into the time capsule all the way back, let's say about 20 years ago. It was a much simpler time back 20 years ago. If you wanted to watch NFL football to your heart's content, all you needed to do was have a basic cable package. That was it. Just a basic cable package would give you the opportunity to watch NFL football to your leisure. Of course, if you wanted to watch every single football game that was at your disposal, you could pay, at the time, a fairly nominal fee for NFL Sunday Ticket through DirecTV, and you could watch every game. But if you just wanted to watch the national games as well as your local hometown, all you needed was a basic cable TV package. All games were on Fox, CBS. So Fox had the NFC package, CBS the AFC package. Monday Night Football was on ABC. Sunday Night Football was on ESPN. It was kind of a role reversal of sorts. The Monday night game was that marquee matchup, and that Sunday night game was more or less the junior varsity, if you will. And that's how it was for years and years and years up until 2006. And then after 2006, there was a little bit of a shakeup. So NBC joined into the fray as the home of Sunday Night Football, and that became the marquee matchup of the week. And the Monday night game kind of was the lesser matchup. That jumped over to ESPN. Now, at this point, you've got NFL Network that has really taken off. NFL Network started to not only were they doing the 24/7 NFL content, but they also started airing live games. So, starting Thanksgiving night and going the rest of the season, NFL Network would air a Thursday night game along with an occasional Saturday night game once in a while. So now, for that little chunk of time at the end of the 2000s decade, you needed a basic cable package and an enhanced sports package if you really wanted to watch that Thursday night game. So, like a kind of like a sports package or a sports tier or something like that to get that NFL Network because that wasn't available on
Yeah,
every
I
package.
I
So,
think back in the day, like usually, like so we had like Xfinity or Comcast. I want to say it was probably like to add an extra 10, $15 a month, and it got you, yeah, your NFL Network, NBA TV, MLB Network, and I think NHL Network came along, but it was like 10, $15. Yeah.
yep. And this was a situation where we're talking week 13, 14, 15, and 16. So, at worst, you missed 4 games if doing anything above just that basic cable TV package was a little bit too much. You're only missing 4 games, and as I recall, they didn't put super amazing games on these NFL Network. I mean, you're still talking way more in the way of Jaguars Titans than you were anything super hard hitting that you just had to be able to watch. So if you couldn't swing it, you were no worse for the wear. That's okay. And that went all the way up till 2011. Starting in 2012, NFL Network really started to put some stock into the Thursday night package to the point where they aired a game every week, starting in week 2, because you had the opening night game that was on a Thursday night. And then from there on, weeks 2 through 16, there was an NFL Network Thursday night game every week. So now all of a sudden, hey, I'm missing one game a week that I could be watching. So it's almost like, okay, I could get by with just basic, but I almost kind of have to get into that next tier if I want to watch Thursday Night Football every week. And again, the games were more pedestrian than they were amazing, but you still had some nice instant classics that were thrown in there that you would kind of look back on and say, oh, sucks to have missed that. But then you're still having Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN, Aaron, everything else. Thursday Night Football started to become an even bigger deal starting in 2014. So you have NFL Network, which aired half of the Thursday night games, and then CBS picked up the other half of the Thursday night games. So then you're thinking, okay, I can watch some of them on CBS, and oh well. So your bottom line is you're still not having to invest a whole lot. And something similar would take place moving forward through the 2015, 16, 17 season. You have a simulcast with NFL Network for Thursday night. You got CBS in the mix. You got NBC in the mix. Nothing really changing too much. Now, starting in 2008 is where we finally started to see something we haven't seen before, and that was a streaming service start to at least dip their toe into the water here. So everything else is the same at 2018, Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN. NFL Network aired 5 Thursday night games. Fox jumped into the mix and aired 11 Thursday night football games with an occasional Saturday game here and there. But Amazon Prime Video at this point aired an alternate broadcast. You remember when Hannah Storm and Andrea Kramer were anchoring the alternate broadcast on Prime? I never actually watched it, but they wound up doing this for like 2 seasons worth of Thursday night football games. So you can still get by with just what you were doing all along unless you were really gung-ho to watch whatever alternate broadcast Prime Video had. But this was kind of like that dry run of, hey, can we do this? And now we're getting into the COVID era where people are starting to stream stuff left and right. People were cooped up for months at a time, and this is where streaming stuff really started to take off, and we finally started to see it in sports as well. And this is where Prime Video was still holding onto that alternate broadcast on Thursday night, but there was one game the day after Christmas. It was the 49ers and the Cardinals in 2020, COVID Christmas, if you will. There was one random Saturday game that was aired exclusively on Prime Video. So if you didn't have Prime Video, you weren't able to watch this game, plain and simple, unless you were in one of the local TV markets of either the Bay Area or the desert. You weren't watching this game. So here we are, 2020, the very first time where it's like, hey, this basic or enhanced cable package I have won't allow me to watch every national TV game imaginable. So this is where things start to get a little convoluted. 2022 is where now you're getting Peacock into the mix. You're getting ESPN Plus into the mix. And now Prime Video is the sole home for Thursday Night Football. So you had to be a Prime Video subscriber if you wanted to watch Thursday Night Football. That's non-negotiable. Peacock was simulcasting Sunday Night Football with NBC, but now at the tail end of the season, it was a Saturday before Christmas, you had the Bills and the Chargers in 2023 aired exclusively on Peacock. That's not like a week 2 or a week 3 game that nobody cares about. You're talking 2 teams with playoff implications on the line. Week 16, a night game, Saturday night, thrown on Peacock. That's a game that I got to think more NFL fans than not at least have some level of interest in. So that's that. You've also got one international game in the 2022 season and in the 2023 season that was aired on ESPN Plus. So if you were an ESPN Plus subscriber, you weren't able to
Correct me
watch
if
one
I'm
of
wrong.
those international games.
ESPN Plus, that's like where you can catch Purdue versus Northwestern in a Big Ten game at noon, right?
Yes,
Isn't that ESPN Plus?
with Pam Ward on the call.
ESPN Plus, terrible branding by ESPN
Yes.
because I just think of those days back in the day.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Back when Wayne Larrivee did Big Ten games. So 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 that's that. You're talking two international games over the course of two seasons that were only on ESPN Plus. You had that Bills Chargers game in 2023 Week 16 that was aired exclusively on Peacock. And if that wasn't bad enough, that postseason, so calendar year 2024, postseason of 2023, Peacock was back in the exclusive business again of airing the Dolphins and the Chiefs on wildcard weekend Saturday night. So again, if you don't have Peacock, you're not watching a playoff game. So that's the first of its kind right there. And that was in the same year, 2023, that NFL Sunday Ticket jumped from DirecTV, which is a traditional satellite service, to YouTube TV, which at best is a go-between, at worst is a full-on streaming service. So the game is really starting to change here. By 2024, we lose complete cabin pressure. NFL Network is airing international games and Saturday triple headers in the month of December. ESPN Plus was airing an exclusive Monday Night Football game as part of a doubleheader. So they actually aired a game on ESPN early, and they aired Chargers Cardinals as game 2 of the doubleheader, aired exclusively on ESPN Plus. Over on Peacock, you had the Packers and the Eagles Week 1 in Brazil to start the 2024 season. So again, you don't have Peacock, you're not watching a marquee matchup featuring the Packers and the Eagles. Christmas Day doubleheader aired on Netflix. So you want to watch football on Christmas Day, you don't have Netflix, tough luck. You're out on it. And then of course, Prime Video was once again airing all Thursday night football games and one exclusive wildcard games. So for 2024, you not only had to have a basic cable package, but you also had to have a way to watch NFL Network. You had to be an ESPN Plus subscriber. You had to subscribe to Peacock. You had to have Netflix, and you had to have Prime Video just to watch every quote-unquote national TV game. And again, that's before we're even starting to talk about Sunday Ticket yet. More of the same in 2025, except they added YouTube into the mix because they aired the Chiefs and the Chargers from Brazil at week 1 of last season. So now you're talking all those providers and streaming services that I rattled off for 2024. Now you're adding YouTube into the mix. So if you don't have YouTube, you're missing out on, again, a big-time, big-name divisional matchup to lead off the season. And then heading into 2026, it's going to be more of the same. You got to have NFL Network, which is now owned by ESPN Unlimited. So you got to have the ESPN Unlimited app if you don't have NFL Network. You got to have Prime Video for all Thursday night. Yep. Yeah. Russell Wilson. Prime Video for all Thursday night. The Black Friday game, one exclusive wildcard game. Netflix is going to air 49ers and Rams week 1 from Australia. They're going to air that Thanksgiving Eve game between the Packers and the Rams. They're going to air that Christmas Day doubleheader. Peacock is going to have a to-be-determined exclusive game. If you're one of those people that just decide, hey, you know what, screw it, we're going to just cut the cord and do streaming only, you've got to have Peacock. You got to have Netflix. You got to have Prime Video. You got to have ESPN Unlimited. You got to have Paramount Plus. You got to have Fox One. Phil, what I'm getting at, I appreciate you bearing with me as I did more or less an oral history of the last 30 years in television, but
you forgot one. The Rams will actually go ahead and stream their training camp cuts live on LinkedIn and update their player profiles LinkedIn that say former time with the Rams. Completely made that up. But you see where
I
we're going with
believed you
this.
though. I
This is
figured if it's not
bizarre.
on that, it's going to be on Instagram Live or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at, Phil, as I again thank you for bearing with me as I recited a 30-year oral history of NFL on television. So just kind of using round numbers here, Phil. If you are the type that just wants to watch football, you're having to spend well over $100 a month
Yeah.
just to watch NFL football. Or
Hmm.
if you go the YouTube TV route and want to do the Sunday ticket thing, you're paying $83 a month for YouTube TV. If you're a new customer, you're paying $20 a month on top of that for Sunday ticket. If you're an existing customer, you're paying $31 a month on top of that for Sunday ticket. Phil, at what point do we reach that tipping point of enough's enough?
So it's the cost, and don't get me wrong, like all throughout this, it's the cost of attending these games has also skyrocketed. I mean, that's a whole nother episode that we can
That's a
get into.
whole different subject.
Um, but if you are watching this at home, there's an exorbitant cost that you would have to fork over, and then let alone trying to find out what streaming service this is on. Now, I think a place like Buffalo Wild Wings, which of course they have so many different TVs on, like that place could literally just operate and they're somehow going to manage to have the game on with so many screens. But I think of kind of like the mom and pop sports bar operation that maybe paid for Sunday ticket in the past. And it was just, okay, we'll just pay Sunday ticket, we'll turn the game on. It's going to get to the point that, like, if you go to some place and you ask a server to turn the game on, good luck.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on ESPN Plus Unlimited, like the Ocho. Like, what are we even doing at this point? They're gonna be like, I don't know if we have that. You know, and that's the thing. Like, I honestly truly think that where there's a will, there's a way. If you're a diehard fan, like you're gonna find to at least get where your team is playing
Yeah.
and try to see if you got it covered. I mean, maybe not watching every single game. That's probably a point too far for some. But I think about some of these places, like if they just have ESPN on and maybe like another screen for something, and that other screen will just be like a primetime NFL game. I think there's a good chance moving forward they're not going to have the streaming service it's on, or if they do, they're going to fumble around for 15, 20 minutes trying to get it to go.
And meanwhile, you're missing out on actual game action because
Yeah.
the app is trying to upload or they're just trying to figure out how in the blue heck to get to that in the first place.
Yep.
We know all too well, Phil, that the NFL has been king for the longest time. But do you think something like this, to where it's from a cost standpoint, it can be extremely expensive? People have bills to pay, people have real life expenses that maybe they're just priced out of this, or the fact that you're not knowing how to find these games, or that you've got buffering issues or signal issues or internet strength issues or something like that. Do you think something like this, to where we're so dependent on these streaming services that cost money and need technological upgrades, do you think the kingdom of the NFL, if you will, is at stake of losing a significant number of fans to where it's going to cause some level of concern? Or do you think this is just a blip on the radar that people will conform to and call it a day?
Maybe half and half. I think it is a big issue that I think there's so much money being thrown in the NFL that I think they're not taking kind of an everyman approach to the rising costs of everything. I mean, how many times has our gas prices went up and down and sideways just this summer alone? And we're not going to get political on that or anything, but I think just like the cost of everything has gotten really expensive for a lot of people. I will say this though, I think our dependency on phones and streaming services, I think Netflix is outrageously higher rated now, as far as getting eyeballs on it than your traditional over-the-air Fox or CBS primetime network schedule. You've got Paramount Plus that's out there and all the things connected with Paramount, Fox.
Nickelodeon and all that
I
fun
watched
business.
I watched a little bit of the World Cup on the streaming service that Fox has. So I think they're literally going to try to push everyone to streaming, and it's going to be the OG TV networks just having to try to make sure that they're not getting too far ahead of pricing to where people just don't get their service. But I think the Comcast or Direct TVs or YouTube TVs, even like those kind of things, I don't think people are wanting to go pay 150 bucks a month in addition to whatever they're paying for Wi-Fi. So I don't know. Like it's really one of those things where I even have to look at my own budget with what I'm spending for season tickets. And is it like I used to have YouTube TV a couple years back, and I haven't had it in well over a year, just because it's way too expensive to have if you're not watching TV that often.
Last question here. We're just about out of time. What calendar year? I'm asking you to put on your prognostication hat here, Phil. What calendar year will it be when the Super Bowl will be aired exclusively on a streaming platform? Because it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
I don't know the current rotation and when it ends, so that's the only thing I don't know. But
the NFL is pushing for an opt-out of the current contract layout in 2029.
I think it's 2029, Vince.
I'm right there with you.
I think it'll either be Netflix or Prime. The way that spending and those are two very, very big.
And we're talking billions with a B that just Netflix alone is putting up for this. So, better start reserving that Netflix now before you're going to be priced out of it. It's crazy times we're in. But that's all the time we've got on this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. I appreciate you bearing with us as we blew off course a little bit, but great chit-chat as far as NFL on TV goes, and something very relevant to what we do week in and week out, and that's watching the games on TV. Phil and I are going to be back with you in a couple of weeks as training camp is just about to get underway, so you're not going to want to miss Phil and myself as we start once again. Looking forward to the ever creeping up on us 2026 NFL season. For Phil Byrne across the way, Vince Progar saying good morning. Go Lions, forward down the field. Over and out.